Well, let's speak now to Marko Mihkelson, Estonian MP and chairman of Estonia's Foreign Affairs Committee. Marko, good morning.
Very good morning.
It's good to speak to you. So we heard there from the Belgian Prime Minister saying that this is victory, actually. The other reading on this is that actually this is a sign of weakness. Ukraine gets its money it needs, sure, but actually seizing Russian assets and deploying Russian assets hasn't happened here. What is your analysis of the outcome?
I think we could be pretty satisfied this morning to get this deal done. And most important actually was the help which is now provided for Ukraine. This is tremendously important at this pivotal moment for Ukraine for next 2 years. That gives them truly lifeline to stand strong, to make sure that they can keep up economy and state at the time of a war. And that is also message to Ukraine that they are not alone, that Europe is there. But of course, the question of Russian frozen assets is not over, let's say. So it's I think that countries who, including also Germany, who had been a kind of in a leading position to get the deal done on frozen assets as well, should keep going with that work, because it is just there is no question that those assets must be used in a way to help Ukraine in the future.
Yeah. The critique of the EU and its funding of Ukraine's war effort has been that the money provided is enough simply to maintain the status quo, that it's never been enough to actually tip Ukraine into victory. Does this money tip Ukraine towards victory?
At least it is, as I said, it is lifeline at this very difficult moment. Then Ukraine is under constant pressure, both from battlefield, but also, as we know, during so-called peace negotiations. I call them so-called because, I don't know that there is any war between Ukraine and the United States or Ukraine and the European Union. What we hear from Russia, they are not interested at all to have a Christmas ceasefire or any kind of lessening tension on a battleground. Instead, we see most fiercest the battles going on right now in different directions. So what is needed is, of course, beyond this decision, what was made last night, to really put stronger pressure on Russia economically, on sanctions, on shadow fleet, on different other domains, mainly on energy sector, of course. But secondly, also, we have to understand those red lines, what Ukraine has when it comes to the question of territories or other sensitivities, what appeared during these negotiations I mentioned. So there is very important now that Europe should not go to the Christmas and think that everything is done, work is done. No, it's a very, very critical moment to increase support to Ukraine.
Emmanuel Macron has suggested it may be a good time to re-engage with Vladimir Putin as far as the EU is concerned. Do you agree with that?
I don't understand what is kind of the aim of that kind of idea. I mean, okay, you can call to him, you can have kind of conversation, but what is the substance? At the time when Putin is a dictator, aggressor, who is actually wanted by the Hague court, who is calling European leaders as piglets and tells that diplomacy doesn't work, and this is why I have to gain or reach their strategic objectives with the war. We all tried before 2022 to stop him, including also President Macron. He was in Moscow on 7th of February 2022. But what happened? So I don't think that we are at that point to open a kind of a channel to dictator Putin, and we instead should support Ukraine to turn the situation around on a battlefield and through the pressure on Russia to make sure that Russia is interested to end this aggression.
Yeah. Marko, good to speak to you this morning. Thanks very much indeed. That is Marko Mihkelson, Estonian MP and chairman of Estonia's Foreign Affairs Committee, questioning why Macron has said it would be useful to engage with Putin, but also calling this a lifeline of funding. And I wonder if that criticism of the EU's inability to tip Ukraine towards victory is going to continue. Let's speak now to the former NATO and senior MOD officer Nicholas Williams, who's a senior associate fellow of the European Leadership Network. Good morning, Nicholas.
Yes, good morning, Callum.
Could we start actually just where we finished there with Marko on Macron's comment that it might be useful to engage with Putin at this point? Is he right?
Well, he's right in terms of there is no dialogue between the Europeans and the Russians. The Europeans have left all dialogue to the Americans. And this is a key security issue for Europe. It's for Macron, it's negligent to leave every contact with the Russians, diplomatic contact relating to this security issue, to the Americans. So, in a sense, he's right, but it'll display lack of unity in the EU because the EU doesn't agree with him.
Yes, as we just heard from our Estonian representative a moment or two ago. And so then, if I was to sort of step just slightly removed from that, is about what Marko was just saying about the message this sends to Ukraine of support, the loan that is being agreed by EU leaders. That's fine. I wonder what message it sends to Russia, though. I wonder if it sends a message to Russia that once again the EU is happy to prop up stalemate in this conflict.
I think so. It sends a message to Russia that the EU chickened out of using the frozen assets because they were not just frightened of Russia, but frightened of the economic circumstances to themselves. And so, yes, but I don't think Russia would be happy with this message of hope, the lifeline, as the Estonian MP called it, for Ukraine. I think the Russians are hoping that they and the Americans can do a deal.
And the expectation, Nicholas, is that these frozen assets are being held onto as leverage, that they can be used at a future point in a peace negotiation or, for example, to pay reparations in due course. Strategically, does this make sense?
It makes sense in terms of holding some sort of leverage for the Europeans. The Europeans are financing the war effort by Ukraine, largely financing it. And so holding on to these assets makes some sort of sense in terms of demonstrating that Europe is still in the fight. But again, it doesn't do any significant, it hasn't a significant effect on the battlefield. The Russians are progressing ruthlessly and relentlessly.
To draw all of our thoughts together here, Nicholas, is Europe being too respectful of Vladimir Putin?
Well, yes, that's a good question. I think they're wary of Vladimir Putin. I think the Russians have deterred Europe more than Europe has deterred the Russians. And again, I think Europe is right to be wary of the Russians because they have significant battlefield nuclear weapons that deter Europe from being involved significantly on the ground in Ukraine.
Nicholas Williams, it's great to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nicholas Williams is Senior Associate Fellow of the European Leadership Network and a former NATO and indeed senior MOD officer as well.